of ghettos, dear representatives of various religions, please allow me, on behalf of the organizers of this commemorative event, to cordially greet you at this Johannes Rau International Educational Center. Before I proceed to the official part of the event, I would like to briefly announce the house rules.
Наше мероприятие проводится в смешанном офлайн-онлайн формате.
Our event is held in a hybrid format and in two state languages, Belarusian and Russian, with simultaneous interpretation into English. To make sure you get the simultaneous interpretation, you don't need any earphones. The interpretation will be broadcast via speakers into the audience. We Remember campaign is planned, for which the offline participants you here will get the ready-made plaques. The hybrid format is not exactly constructive towards feedback questions, but our online audience can participate via the chat box. Please feel free to type your questions there. Dear ladies and gentlemen, we dedicate our event to the tragic anniversary of the establishment of the Minsk ghetto. 80 years ago, 3 weeks after Minsk was occupied by the Nazi troops, the field commandant's office issues the resolution 812 to establish the Jewish ghetto that became the place of forced move and forced persecution and extermination of Belarusian Jews. As of this day, 80 years ago, until its elimination in late 1943, ghetto has become one of the largest in Europe. And in the occupied territory of the Soviet Union, it ranked number 2 after the Lviv ghetto by the number of prisoners held. Some 120,000 Jews passed through Minsk ghetto. At least 105 of those, 105,000 have died. Of them, around 3,000 of Western European Jews who were either deported and killed in the ghetto or in Trostenets death camp. The topic of ghetto is paramount in historical work, in reconciliation and mutual understanding ever since the International Educational Center in Minsk was opened. Thanks to our Belarusian and foreign partners, with the active participation of witnesses of those events, wartime events, over these years, we have been able to cast a light on the many unknown pages of the Minsk ghetto. We've been able to restore and maintain and cherish the memory about its victims and survivors. With this commemorative event, we would like to remind not just of the tragedy of the Belarusian people, but also of the European and not only the Belarusian Jews, but also Western European Jews. And also we wish to reinforce and ramp up efforts to combat chauvinism, anti-Semitism, nationalism. To commemorate Belarusian and foreign victims of the Minsk ghetto, the organizers of our commemorative event have placed wreaths to the pit memorial and next to the stones pantheon, next to the former Jewish cemetery. Esteemed ladies and gentlemen, please allow me to give the floor for official welcome to Mr. Agatnik. He's the president of the Belarusian Jews associations and communities. The floor is yours, sir. Dear friends, dear participants of the event, I wish to welcome you on behalf of the Jewish communities. These days is when we commemorate. These days when we commemorate this date of the establishment of the Minsk ghetto, created at the order of the Nazi occupants. It became the place of death of many innocent victims. It is far beyond the local event. The Minsk ghetto is akin to the most horrible atrocities of the Nazis against the Jews. 120,000 plus of Jews from Minsk and the neighborhood passed through the ghetto. Western European Jews joined them later. Few survived. And they, together with their descendants, they cherish the memory of the victims of those perished. It is difficult to appreciate the scale of the tragedy. Every victim's family deserves the right to commemorate. In thousands of villages, you will not see the girls' faces with tears. No grandmothers, no baby cries. The people have been brutally murdered. Artisans of all sorts have been killed. The workers have been killed. Porters, carpenters, everyone. Water carriers, millers, bakers, doctors, therapists, dental technicians, surgeons, gynecologists, biochemists, bioscientists have been killed. Algebra, trigonometry, associate professors, PhDs of all possible sciences, engineers, bridge designers have been killed. Accountants, trade workers, supply agents, secretaries have been killed. Teachers have been killed. Grandmothers who could do very sophisticated stockings, knitted stockings, get cookies. Women have been killed who were dedicated to their fathers, to their husbands, both the smart, the beautiful, and the dull girls have been killed. 80-year-old senior citizens with cataracts in their eyes have been killed. Crying babies who were sucking on the mother's teeth until the last moment, all of them dead. Hundreds, tens of thousands. It's not just murder of a people, it's the murder of the roots. It's the murder of the soul and body of the people. Unique experience accumulated by thousands of artisans and craftsmen. Tradition, folklore has also been killed. This is the destruction of mother nests, of cemeteries, of everything, of all the people that used to live together. As a chairman of Belarusian Jewish associations and communities, I wish to say that we continue to carry on with the preservation of memory of Holocaust and anti-Semitism. We will support all the initiatives. I wish to thank the organizers and all the attendees of this event. I wish you peaceful sky above your head. Dear ladies and gentlemen, the floor now goes to Valery Mozgaev, the former prisoner of Minsk ghetto, the chairman of Minsk's of Belarusian Association of former prisoners of ghettos and concentration camps. The floor is yours. Good afternoon. You see before you one of the few surviving prisoners of the Minsk ghetto. Unfortunately, or fortunately, I was 2 years old at the time. I simply don't remember what was happening back then. However, the things that were happening there, those who take interest and those who know, it used to be a ghetto geared towards the extermination of Jews. Extermination as in all killed, killing every person getting there. The survivors were 2 to 3% at best. Out of 120,000, according to various estimates, 100 to 105,000 have perished in the Minsk ghetto alone. The conditions in which the prisoners of Minsk ghetto were subjected to was crowdedness, anti-sanitary conditions, and so on and so forth. I don't think we should stop there, especially since I don't really remember anything of that personally. However, I do have one question that I'm unable to answer, or multiple questions. One of them, how come the German people have followed the Führer, have followed some idiotic doctrine to exterminate Jews? What? Are the Jewish people worse than everybody else on the face of earth? Why did they have to be killed? Why it was not just the Germans, but also many other Western European countries who backed this idea? Even before the arrival of Germans, in many countries, the Jews were subject to elimination. How come in Kiev on the 29th and 30th September, 34,000 Jews were killed? At the same time, the Ukrainians were also contributing to the killing. How come the Frenchmen also put Jews on trains and sent them to concentration camps? How come the Norwegians did not let the Jews cross the Swedish border and get to the neutral territory? There are so many whys. And what's surprising is one thing. There were countries that, for some reason, that, as it turns out, they did not venture down this path. One of them was Bulgaria, who saved 50,000 Jews, despite the environment back then. Denmark also did that. They shipped 8,000 Jews to the neutral Sweden. Well, they say that they did it for money, but well, it's secondary. The Jews went to hide to safe houses. If it was the ghetto, more than 700 righteous among the nations are in Belarus. I would really bow down to the earth to all of these people, because this was the way to salvation, if somebody saved you. And also there were two partisan guerrilla units formed with Jews, and they were also saving the Jewish people. Getting back to the topic, how come this Wannsee conference 1942, the Germans, led by his last name slipped my mind. The final resolution of the Jewish matter was this: extermination of Jews. It was adopted back then. Possibly 15 people around the table, smart, intelligent people, who decided that the Jewish matter should be handled like this. It was a secret protocol. It was eyes only. It was not to be disclosed. How come the avenues of approach or crematoriums were not bombed down? Why not Churchill, not Roosevelt, did not issue this command, issue this order? I simply don't have the question to all these multiple whys. And the sound is gone. There are several people that I communicate with. That is Srebnik, professor, distinguished worker, and the sound is muted again. New York Academy of Sciences, and the sound is muted again. I wonder who's doing that. The chairperson of the Leningrad or St. Petersburg Association of Jews, former prisoners of ghetto and Nazi death camps. I'm not sure whether Felix Lipsky is online with us, the former chairman of our Belarusian Association. And of course, we need to pay respect to David Tapkin, who died, former prisoner of Minsk ghetto, former associate chairman of the Jewish Association of those who survived in the Holocaust. Thank you. And the delegation of the IBB participants, Yuri Uralsky, the first deputy of the Directorate for Ideology and Youth Matters under the Minsk City Executive Committee, was supposed to take the floor. He is missing for objective reasons, but he did give me his address to be read out. Dear participants, please allow me on behalf of the Minsk City Executive Committee to welcome you and express assuredness that the event who you have the honor to attend, happening to commemorate the 80th anniversary of the tragedy of Minsk Jewish population, will contribute heavily to the maintenance and cherishing the history of the past, the history of Minsk dwellers and the ghetto inhabitants. 80 years since the image of our city was completely distorted. It's a tragic page in the history of Minsk and Minsk dwellers' life. Minsk Jews suffered from it for centuries before they comprised a meaningful part of Minsk's population. They played a pronounced role in its cultural and economic life, and in a number of areas they also helped shape the image of peaceful Minsk. Also, we need to remember that the Minsk ghetto and the Trostinets camp, which is intertwined with it, is a part and a significant part of the overall European Holocaust, the genocide against the Jews and the Roma people, as well as the common policy of extermination of people by Nazis on the Belarusian soil. The extermination policy by the Nazis was essentially spread for all citizens. The genocide was planned and affected a bit slower for other people, but nonetheless quite consequential. Thousands and thousands of Western European Jews deported from Europe to Minsk, who found death on the Belarusian soil, the resting places in Belarus, creates an invisible yet a symbolic link. It demonstrates the necessity and the possibility to create a pan-European culture of remembrance. In Belarus, who lost every third citizen during the Second World War, commemoration of the victims of the Nazi crimes has become an essential part of the state policy. State policy in upbringing and rearing, educating the younger generations. A lot has been done to memorialize memory in the capital city of Minsk, particularly commemorating the Holocaust victims and Minsk ghetto prisoners, particularly. This has been done in coordination between the state bodies, state agencies, with NGOs and public associations and initiatives, with citizens who care, and with foreign partners. One of the bright examples of international cooperation projects directly linked to the Minsk ghetto and geared towards the shaping of the shared culture of memory is the exhibition of the Trostinets death camp, History and Memory. As of 2016, it is open and has been traveling to Belarus, Germany, and a number of other countries. An important thing is the aim of our forum's attendees to respect and keep the memory going. Unfortunately, memories tend to be forgotten, especially after a lengthy period of time, when the living witnesses of the events are no longer with us. It's a fundamental challenge to all of us. How do we act in these new conditions? How do we run research? What measures should be taken in terms of rearing the younger generations, given that there are no living witnesses? We do hope that the outcomes of the forum's activities will include the answers to these challenging questions. Only through joint thinking and rethinking of the shared history will help us cherish the memory of all the war's victims, and it will help us avoid such future. I wish all of you fruitful work. That's the end of the address. Alongside Belarusian participants, there are also German participants. On behalf of the German side, Astrid Zam, Executive Director of the Dortmund International Educational Center, will take the floor. Astrid, the floor is yours.
Всем здравствуйте. К сожалению, я не нахожусь в
Good
зале.
afternoon, everyone. Unfortunately, I'm not with you in the audience. I'm participating online. I do hope that you can hear me well. Dear participants of today's commemorative event, dear witnesses, dear partners, Today we remember the 80th anniversary of the Minsk ghetto establishment. Unfortunately, this date is just one of many sad and tragic dates in the series that we remember in the context of the entire history of the Second World War and the Great Patriotic War. Specifically, we have particularly planned an events timed to June the 22nd, as well as events timed to coincide with the beginning of the deportation of Jews from European nations to the Minsk ghetto. At the same time, the fact that the Minsk ghetto was created literally a month after the beginning of the occupation of Minsk by German troops testifies to the scale of the hatred of the National Socialists towards the Jews. Their pursuit and extermination, precisely as a separate group of the population, was partly even carried out to the detriment of the direct military interests of the German Wehrmacht. The persecution and extermination of other groups of the population in Belarus was carried out concurrently. Also in July 1941, for instance, camps for prisoners of war were created in Masykovщina and in other sites where there was a mass extermination, essentially through famine. For us, as a German-based organization that has been cooperating with Belarusian partners for decades to develop mutual understanding and reconciliation, it is very important that in Germany, the largest possible number of people, especially youngsters, know and understand the scale and the profoundness, the depth of the tragedy that the Nazi occupation meant for the population in Belarus. At the same time, there is a chance for adequate lessons to be learned from history only when humane compassion for the victims is accompanied by a comprehensive analysis of the reasons for which National Socialist crimes and atrocities have become possible. For this reason, in our upbringing and pedagogical work, the witnesses play the key role. And our main approach is a multi-perspective view on the historical past. Only then can memory bring us closer instead of dividing us. It's a great joy for us that today witnesses also participate in this event with us. We thank them, we're very grateful to them for their many years of active participation in the educational work of the historical workshop and other institutions. And I want to assure them and all of you that we are making a lot of efforts to make sure the testimony is heard, is available to young people in Belarus, Germany, and other countries. Historical sites and places play a very important role in the preservation of memory and the development of a concrete idea of the past. After all, they are the best repositories of the evidence that we have. Consequently, their preservation and use as modern educational sites is of paramount importance. Their activity is especially efficient when residents of adjacent territories, neighboring territories, and other concerned citizens have felt their involvement in the process of development, as is demonstrated, for instance, by the initiatives Save Masykovщina or the historical workshop proper. Therefore, we're grateful to the Minsk City Executive Committee and the Federal Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Germany and all other partners for their active support of the plans for the reconstruction and development of the historical workshop, which we will unveil today in particular. Once again, I thank all of you for participating in today's event and in general for your cooperation. I'm really looking forward. I really hope that those terrible events that we commemorate today really help us and future generations not to repeat the mistakes of the past and avoid new confrontations. Thank you. Microphone. The microphone. The microphone is off.
Меня не видно.
Okay. Will they see me behind this podium? Yes, they will.
Уважаемые дамы и господа,
Dear ladies and gentlemen,
дорогие друзья,
dear
я
friends,
бывшая малолетняя
I'm a former
гетто.
young prisoner
Мне было
of
неполных
Minsk
6
ghetto.
лет.
I was younger than 6 years old.
Что такое гетто?
What is ghetto?
Это несколько улиц,
A ghetto is a bunch of streets,
домики с печным
wooden
отоплением.
houses heated by stoves,
Нет,
no water.
улицы, помпа,
There's a pump outside,
воды,
no
тепла,
food, no
огорожено
warmth,
проволокой,
fenced off
ворота,
with a barbed wire. The gates are guarded.
войти
You
не
cannot get in or out.
По нашим подсчетам,
According to our estimates,
в Минском гетто находилось 150
there were
человек.
up to 150,000 convicts, prisoners in the Minsk ghetto.
6 страшных погромов.
In slightly over 2 years, there were 6 terrible pogroms in the ghetto.
Ночных и дневных
Countless
зав.
daytime and nighttime
Умирали
searches.
каждый
The
день от
people
голода.
or raids. People were dying by the thousands from hunger and famine,
Выносили
and diseases. Every morning, the bodies of the dead would be taken out and put next to the thresholds of the houses. A special gang would collect them and dump them into dug pits. Moreover, every hour, every second, people would die. And it was a kind of entertaining joke with the fascists laughing out loud, killing Jews. When killing Jews. I've lived a long life, and until now, I cannot really fathom, I cannot realize what kind of mother would have given birth to a monster of a man like that and what she taught him. I remember everything that happened in the ghetto. This memory has lived in me for my entire life. I remember the pogroms, I remember the convicts, the prisoners, their faces. I remember the river of blood that flowed on the Obovnaya street on the right-hand side after a pogrom. It went down to the Mysnikova street. I was so shocked that my consciousness simply switched off, and that's me as a young child. The years, time goes by, it dictates our rules. There are not too many of us remaining, 10 people at the most. We, the survivors of unseen, unimaginable suffering, the loss of the close ones, we are so sorry and so upset when people die in ethnical fights, conflicts. We want to yell out to them, to cry out to them, stop. We're all humans. We started from Adam and Eve. And there's no nationalities. It's just a geographic notion, especially when it comes down to a person's life. There's nothing more sacred, there's nothing more precious than a human life. I am speaking on behalf of the living and the dead, mothers, to mothers of all the world. Teach your children the good things, that good things will come back to you and your children will also benefit from it. It's only kindness that will be able to save the world. We address all the heads of the state. Stop it. Stop showing off before each other who is smarter. A war will not spare anyone, including you. I wish you good health and peace. May you live until you're 120 years old.
От имени зарубежных партнеров
On
нас
behalf of the foreign partners, Fabian Rühle, Director for Jewish Education at the Jewish Historical Institute called Centropa in Germany, will now take the floor.
Thank you very much for the invitation. I'm joining you via Zoom today. Unfortunately, I cannot be there in Minsk with you, but I'm sending my regards, especially to Irina Kashtalian, our dear friend and partner from the Leonid Levin History Workshop Minsk, and Galina Levina, without whom we would have not been able to work in Belarus, because Galina, you helped us start our oral history interview program in Minsk a long time ago. On this very important day, I want to point out and want to again express my gratitude to our partners in Minsk for promoting this tragic story of the Minsk ghetto through education. And together with Irina Kashtalian and her team, we have been able to produce a website in Russian, Belarusian, and English for teachers in Belarus, but also in Germany. And this is something that Astrid Sam so pointedly put out and pointed out, is it's very important that German students learn about these tragedies as well. I've checked this morning the newspapers in Germany, and believe it or not, there was not a single note about what happened 80 years ago. Of course, we've been talking about June 22nd, 1941, but today's date is not really marked in Germany's memory. And Centropa, together with the help of IBB Minsk, is trying to accomplish that. We have produced, together with Irina's team, a short film on Elina Drabkina, who has been a survivor of the ghetto and has been a Jewish partisan afterwards, after she escaped the ghetto. This film is now being used in schools in Belarus, but also in Germany. And through this film and through the website and through teaching materials developed by IBB Minsk, we are able to connect students and teachers. That's all I want to say. From my side, I wish you all a successful event. I'm going to put in the chat room the link to the film for all of you who have not seen the film. Thank you, and again, much success for your event.
Спасибо, Фабиан.
Thank you very much, Fabian. Now we have a unique opportunity to talk to Savely Kaplinsky, who is the former prisoner of Minsk ghetto. He's been trying to connect to us, shot at it. I would like to give the floor to Angelika Anoshko, chairman of the board at the International Public Association Mutual Understanding, Взаимопонимание. Ma'am, the floor is yours. I cannot but get surprised at how weird and tricky thing our memory is. A human memory that 80 years on after the tragedy still continues to store so much pain. There's so much pain in the memory. The details of the events, small and big stories of human history and human survival, are in the memory. Well, the God wanted you to survive. The God wanted you to live for as long as you can. And God wants you to remember. The memory will not let go of us. It's very difficult. It's knocking on your home doors and on your hearts every night. It's a challenge. 8 decades ago, a horrible atrocity took place. It's impossible how a human brain could contemplate and go ahead with something like that. However, an even scarier thing would happen if we were to forget it. Of course, all of us that have not been witnesses, immediate participants of those events, we cannot remember you as well. We cannot remember it as well as you do, but we will together with you. And now, completing this official session of our event, I would like to once again utter the words that remain an important slogan, an important motto, impetus for us to carry on. We do remember. Thank you. Thank you, Angelica. Dear ladies and gentlemen, maybe another shot at getting Saveli online. Is he with us? Sir? Now the mic is on, his lips are moving, but no sound is coming through. No, unfortunately, it's just not working. Dear ladies and gentlemen, our historic activity would be impossible to remember without the representative of traditional confessions of Belarus. After the opening unveiling of the Trostenets Memorial 2 years back, involving the Belarusian, German, and Austrian presidents, the educational circle under the IBB held a number of workshops to cherish and maintain the memory at parishes and communities. Also, it recommended Jewish communities to hold special sermons on the 3rd of September. This is when, in 1944, after the official commission for the investigation of Nazi crimes was done, on September the 3rd, there was a first commemorative meeting rally in our city. I would like to give the floor to the apostles administrator of the Minsk and Mogilov diocese, Kazimir Velikosets. The floor is yours. Dear brothers and sisters, we are all children of God. I wish to welcome all of you here, and also I wish to express my sorrow about the tragedy that happened 8 decades ago in Minsk. God created this world, and it created everything for humans, and he gave us 10 commandments. Love God with all the heart and all the effort, and love your close ones as you love yourself. So it seems that we need to follow these, we must follow these, in which case God will fill us with wisdom and love and holiness. And we, with the God's help, will go ahead and comply with the 10 commandments, including the one, love your neighbor as you love yourself. First World War, 1 million dead. Second World War, again, millions and millions of dead. How can you put innocent people into these concentration camps and starve them to death, and then those surviving still kill? So we are deeply regretful of this event. We must commemorate what had happened. However, we need to remember that number one, most important thing in life is God. The first murder that happened, the brother killed a brother, Cain killing Abel. Abel preaches, Abel praises God, but Cain turned away from God, and there came the first homicide, fratricide, and we're all brothers. Our parents are Adam and Eve. Only the history and the geography divides us. Otherwise, we're all children of God. We have shared parents, and we must live as brothers and sisters. We must live on this earth, because once we're done here on earth, the life will go on. I have seen the new sky and the new earth. This is what's in store for us. However, we must depart from this world with a clean soul. Be holy, as holy am I. This is what God teaches us. We must live with this in mind, with this in our soul, to be able to have the spiritual strength to manifest love and profess kindness. May God's mercy be upon you. May we all remember and pray about this, so that no horrible tragedies would happen on the face of earth. Love your close ones as you love yourselves. 80 years ago, so many innocent people suffered and died on this earth. May God give them eternal life in the sky for all their suffering. All the best. Thank you.
Большое спасибо, Ваша Эминенция.
Thank you very much, Your Eminence. At the delegation of Metropolitan Veniamin, Minsk and Zaslavia, Patriarchal Exarch of all of Belarus, Proto-Priest Shimbalov will take the floor, Belarusian Orthodox Church.
Дорогие братья и сестры,
Dear brothers and sisters, please allow me to pass best regards from Veniamin, Metropolitan Veniamin, Patriarchal Exarch of all of Belarus. We wholeheartedly support your effort to cherish and preserve the historic memory. We always try to give a helping hand there, and we are deeply compassionate about what has happened, what took place on our soil throughout the history. It's a particularly sad and tragic event that cannot be explained and that cannot fit in our souls. I'm talking about the creation of the ghetto. I'm talking about mass killings of people. But particularly, I would like to emphasize that initially, the torture, the abuse, the contemplated, premeditated abuse and torture, keeping people in inhumane conditions, killings over nothing, unexplained murder. We cannot explain murder in any sort. Thou shalt not kill is our main commandment. So no murder can be justified, because every person is sacred, is precious to God. We cannot only murder a person, we cannot insult them, because thereby we're insulting the image of God in that person. We're desecrating it, and we are acting against God. How can we kill? This is important. This is impossible. And only some damaged consciousness of a person who tore away from the God's mercy, from God, can cloud the judgment to such an extent, can immerse him into darkness so much that that person would be able to commit something as horrible as that. It is very important to keep the memory alive. This memory is always in God, but for us, it's also important in human souls, in human hearts, to preserve this memory and to show all the aspects of this tragedy, so that our children would know that no such thing must ever be permitted since. We thank you for your efforts. We hope that with joint effort, we will be able to build our world, to build our country in love, harmony, and respect to each other. Thank you.
Спасибо, Ваше Высокопреподобие. Мы рады приветствовать среди нас Радкевича Дмитрия
Thank you, Your
Мустафовича.
Holiness. Now I would like to invite the chairman of the Muslim religious community in Belarus. The floor is yours.
Ассаламу алейкум ва рахматуллахи ва баракату. Мир вам, милость Всевышнего и его
Peace to
благословение.
you. May peace be upon you, God's mercy
Друг друга
and his blessing.
сегодня также
This is what the Muslims say to each other when greeting each other, and I would like to greet you with the same words.
и от своего личного имени
On behalf of the Mufti
хочу
and from me personally,
к
I would like to join this event
принести свои
and
слова, свои
offer
слова поддержки
my
и
words
сочувствия.
of compassion and support.
Память — это такая зыбкая и хрупкая материя.
Memory is a very
Помнит, он остается человеком.
tricky thing. It's a very subtle thing.
Мусульмане Беларуси
As long as people remember, they remain humans. We, Muslims of Belarus, cannot be indifferent to the death, terrible death of our neighbors, of the Jewish people, or any other people that died during the second global terrible war. We want to avoid making the mistakes made back then. 8 decades is the time frame over which even the survivors, direct participants, immediate participants of the events can stop and wonder whether that memory of his or her is true or false. But we cannot doubt the testimonies of living people. We cannot be but horrified by the scale, methodical nature, premeditated nature of extermination of living people, innocent people, simply because their appearance was different, or they had the blood of another nation in their veins. As long as people remember, as long as they have memory, they will not be caught off guard. The people will be ready to actively combat evil and injustice. Islam teaches us that all the man's deeds on earth are over with the death. But first of all, that their knowledge is living on. It is not killed. It is not dead. It was mentioned that so many people of different trades and careers died, but still they left a whole generation after them. The generation, the descendants, is the second cause, the second deed, which is not dead once people die. The third thing, the undying thing, is what's called Sadaka Jariya in Arabic, the good deeds, the good things done by someone who do not die when they perish. When people get together to commemorate, when people get together to remind each other, it's also one of those good deeds, one of those good things that leaves a very important trait, and it helps preserve that fleeting memory. Peace to you. May God's mercy be upon you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Dmitry, for this philosophical insight. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes our official session. I would like we would like to invite you to a 20-minute coffee break. We will meet again at 15 to 5. What was that? Sorry, no, apologies, some changes in the agenda. The We Remember campaign, the social media campaign, now we're supposed to take a picture for it.
Мы раздаем лозунг We Remember.
We are distributing the We Remember motto. Once we're done, this is our appeal to everyone in the audience. We remember. Could you please pick these sheets up? Our photographers will take a picture of that for the history. Could you please stand holding the We Remember sheet in your hands? It's kind of a memorial plaque. So the campaign now starts, and it is supposed to go on for some time for the photographers to be able to picture it. Hold it before you. Can I please ask you to approach the center so that you fit in the photographer's lens? 1 meter distance, please observe the social distancing.
Спасибо, акция завершилась. Таблички можно оставить у себя на...
Thank you. The campaign is successfully done for now. That Minsk ghetto history is multifold, very diverse in its tragic nature. It is a subject matter for domestic and foreign scientific research to bring some light to the current issues of this history. I would like to give the floor to Inna Gerasimova, a well-known researcher for history of Minsk ghetto. The floor is yours. Good afternoon, dear friends, colleagues, compatriots. Today is a very important day. It's a big date for our memory. And I believe it's also important by way of understanding how to move forward. A lot has been said about the memory, about that we have that memory, we keep it going, but it's imperfect, it's not perfect. Human memory is not perfect. We need to have the materials, the artifacts to tell us the story of what has been happening here. More years will pass, none of us will last forever. However, someone will still have to carry on remembering this, not as witnesses, not as actual participants, but as people who live here on the same sites, Belarusians, Jews, any other nationality inhabiting Belarus and not just Belarus. For this reason, one of the central matters today, aspects of research and otherwise, this is the matter of remembrance, of keeping the memory alive. This is a very challenging thing, especially in our today's setting. However, I would like to, well, as far as Minsk Ghetto is concerned, I would like to say a few words about the activity of the museum and about what we have been able to do in this time span when we got together and started working to carry on this tradition of research. To my big dissatisfaction, so it's been many years since I left Minsk, but I'm still aware of what's going on. I still do research, not necessarily in Holocaust, but I write books and articles on the topic, which is when I have the question. Many come to me, researchers, common people, they ask me questions. So Inna, this, Inna, that. And I was like, sorry, we studied that already. There are books covering your questions. That matter is no longer relevant, but people are simply unaware of those books. Well, there are several reasons to that. I'm not blaming anyone. It's indeed the case. We've done everything jointly with the Jewish community, but we've always been tight on funds. So it was really impossible to publish many books to tell the story. But we somehow still managed to publish a few books. So I will talk very specifically about things we managed and things we failed. I mean, from the viewpoint of research work, some things that are known and some things will need to be taken on by the generations to come. Now, the first order of importance is that educational, it's not research, it's educational programs. This is what has to be prioritized. We've ran 2 huge contests in the past years, in the recent years, themed Holocaust in Belarus. More than 1,000 students, teachers, tutors took part, and the materials that were sent in for the contest, they showed how people of various ages try to learn things. Now the educational programs are still ongoing. Historical workshop is part of that. However, the contests that would encompass, that would cover the youth and the adolescents, the students, school children, there aren't many contests of the kind. We need to continue this tradition. Another thing, as for the history of the ghetto itself is concerned, one of the challenges we've seen when we started dealing with the topic is dating back to 2002 when I came to the museum. I thought that everybody knows everything there is to know about Minsk ghetto. There were articles, publications, and so on. And so we started recording the history of families. We started putting down the stories. Thank God, in 10 years, we've been able to get hold of the people still surviving people, not in Belarus, but in Israel, in the US. Right. So we have a bank of histories. There was a first exhibition, Human and Destiny. It happened recently. Frida and her family, Frida's here with us, her family was represented there. 10 families with living descendants have been featured. And the history of the family, of each family, with the pictorials, with the pictures, everything was put together and exhibited. It was a very important move, showing the interest to every particular person who was there. And for the Jewish people, the history of family is a very important thing in the Jewish tradition. The next point is the righteous among the nations. By that time, Maya Krapina, the embassy, were dealing that actively. However, we wanted to put together a directory, a list of the righteous among the nations. When we started talking about that book, this is when the challenges started. Some newspapers, some articles, various different stories. I had to go to Israel, to the relevant section among the righteous among the nations, and start working on the archive. The book that we published in 2005, this is the directory about the righteous among the nations, about the righteous people whom they saved and where and when. The next important step that we took was the step to commemorate the partisan movement, the guerrilla movement. It's not even about the quantity. We just wanted to realize how people escaped the Minsk ghetto and ended up in the guerrilla units, in the partisan units. How they were able to do that, because it's a very tricky thing. You couldn't just escape, just up and leave the ghetto. We worked together with the archive, with the National Belarusian Archive, with Mr. Seremenyev, who has contributed a lot towards shared progress. We have worked with the partisan organization of Israel. where those ex-partisans lived afterwards, and they also helped us a lot preparing that book. Let me tell you that to teach or to study any history, you need to realize once someone starts researching something, meeting the actual witnesses is a very important thing. That's an important matter, important concept. There is also factology that kicks in. Not all the prisoners that survived the war, even those that I got to meet later on, we went to the ghetto territory, all those houses, sites we discussed at length, not all of them were aware that, that something was here and something was there. The specific locations. The ghetto was a big place and people lived in a specific site. They couldn't sometimes know what was happening in the next block over. And only the archives, but again, not all the archives are complete. What helped us determine the sites in the ghetto, the locations of the sites. The ghetto underground is yet another story. We were helped by the documents that are stored in the National Archive of the Republic of Belarus. They are not really in demand, or back then they were not in demand when we started. They date back to 1956-57, when the party archive, when the party was collecting the survivors of the ghetto. You know that since that ghetto was rife with traitors, those people were not heard, all of them. Only in the mid-50s, those underground workers were talked to, and there are recordings of those interviews. Also, there are recordings, or there are notes from those agents of the Soviet people who were working with Moscow in the underground, but there were reports by these people who talked about what was happening. They didn't all use the term ghetto. They would call it a Jewish neighborhood, but they would give such important data that we were simply unaware of. And the Jewish documents were not really complete on that. So the archives I'm mentioning, they helped us work with the unknown things, with things unknown before. And yet another big story. Well, the partisans, yeah, we issued a directory, a book on the partisans. Not just them, not just the partisans of the Minsk ghetto, but all the Jewish partisans who fought in the partisan units in Belarus. And there was a column from which ghetto that particular partisan member joined or came. So we did it on purpose, so that you could see electronically how many people managed to escape the Minsk ghetto and join the partisans. Because we're giving this, we're citing the figures without even thinking. And we really took a lot of interest in that, how many people escaped and joined the partisans. So ballpark figures, some 2,000 persons were able to leave the Minsk ghetto, escape the Minsk ghetto. It's not just those who joined the conventional partisan detachments, but also family detachments, family units, because even the children are in those lists, the older children. Now, as far as the underground activity is concerned, this is a very complicated thing. It's a very complex matter, even though much research has been done. We know that Anna Koprieva, a great historian, she was the first one to write about the underground of the Minsk ghetto. We never disregard this fact. We also wish to thank Sveta Gibeleva, who remembers that, who initiated putting up a monument to Anna Koprieva at her tomb in the cemetery in Minsk. Smoller wrote a lot about that as well. But there are so many last names that were not listed anywhere. We started seeing that time and time again. And we ventured down this challenging path, but it was a guaranteed win. We collected from all the reminiscences, from all the recollections, the memories of these people. And then we started digging the archives. last names, first names, whoever mentioned that person, or there was a spark of that person in history, in the archives. So throughout our activity, we've been able to find out that there was a case of an armed uprising in the Minsk ghetto. Mr. Zholtizhev, together with his Beijing Zholtizhev, together with the friends, when they came to arrest them, they started firing back. They started shooting, and of course, they killed some of those trying to capture them. And there is a document, there is a German report on that. There is documents to certify that. Okay, underground activists, well, you know what, they had other problems. You know what Judenrat is and was. And when the war was over, many prisoners had negative memories of some of the members of Judenrat. That, to the opinion of those in the ghetto, were instrumental to the Germans, were serving the Germans. Few of them did know that they actually ran an underground cell, an underground organization. We also raised this issue, this research topic, and I wish to say that for me personally, this particular direction, this particular area gave me a lot of personal satisfaction. I was morally satisfied, first and foremost. When there was 65th anniversary of the Minsk ghetto, we collected 21 persons. We gathered 21 members of the undergrounds. I mean, we recovered their data, their stories. They were not simply killed in the pogroms. They were actually arrested and they were accused of being the underground members, and they were executed. We collected the names of these people together with the archives and the proof, the archive proof. We brought that to the authorities to make sure that these people, well, there was this medal, the 60th anniversary of liberation of Belarus. There was a Belarusian medal, for which reason we were able to bring our case to the Ministry of Defense, or to those who were working awarding those medals. We served the documents, we filed the documents, and yeah, they took a step forward. They took a step to us. 21 persons posthumously were awarded with this medal and the certificate. When we started digging around for the living descendants of those persons who to give this award to, of course, part of them have not been located, and those medals are still in the museum, but quite a number of people have been located. I will never forget the time when I got the phone number of Zyama Serebryansky's sister, and I called her. Zyama Serebryansky used to be a member of the police of the Judenrat. We now know that he was an underground worker, and he was shot, he was executed. And I invited her over to the commemorative evening. She said, "Why would I?" And we said that, well, to commemorate your brother, we will give you a medal. And there was a silence down the receiver, and then she started crying. She started crying. She burst out into tears. So I was kind of confused, got confused, and I said, "Well, please don't be sorry about that." And she said, "You don't understand. It's just Zyama has always been regarded as a traitor, but by those around us, our family has been surrounded by that." This is when I realized that the things we do are important also for the memory, for the history of Minsk ghetto, and for the history of Holocaust at large. This activity, this research work, is very important. Since I don't have too much time to talk about that, I wish now to speak. I wish now to address a number of other aspects, questions that the museum covers today, and that people are not always aware of. Literally 2 years ago, someone wrote me, I guess a Hungarian person. I don't know how he got hold of me, how he located my details. And by the 65th anniversary of Ghetto, we issued the book of recollections. There were only 2 memoirs, only 2 recollections, only 2 stories of 2 women, two people. Rahil Rapoport, one of them who was a doctor before the war, psychiatrical hospital in Novinki in Minsk. and she left her memoirs after the war, but she never gave those memoirs to anyone. She died, and then by accident, those memoirs have been brought by her friends. Begging your pardon, yeah, I'm about to finish. So the things that have been done to date, we must know that they have been done. They're in existence, and I really hope that the historic workshop and the Jewish community, they will continue looking for these recollections, and the living memory, the actual memory, we will preserve. We will keep it alive for the next generations to come. Thank you. Thank you so much, Inna. We promise you this conversation will go on. In the next section, you'll be convinced that this work will be carried out at an even higher level, with more serious approach with respect to the historic workshop. Now, ladies and gentlemen, please allow me to give the floor to a young scientist, head of the Sector of Scientific Work, Belarusian State Museum of the Great Patriotic War, Sergei Tukala, who will elaborate on what Irina has said, or what Inna has said. Sergei, the floor is yours. Good afternoon, esteemed members of the audience, friends, colleagues. Irina Kashtalyan, IBB, thank you very much for the invitation to this commemorative event. A lot has been done educationally and historically. I don't have too much time, so I would like to highlight some of the important points in more detail. The points that can be subject matter for research and our further discussion. Well, first of all, indeed, for the history of Minsk ghetto, I wish to emphasize that there is no a single piece of research, multifolded, comprehensive, that will really dot all the I's. We don't have a single piece of research on that. This is still a thing in the making. It's a matter of time. I believe that this piece of research will be done, will be carried out in the future. Secondly, the Great Patriotic War History Museum that I represent right now, the sector that was created recently, it's dealing with academic developments, academic research. For the past 3-4 months, a lot has been done. Roundtables have been held, conferences have been held, particularly in the area of Holocaust research, and particularly in the dedicated to the history of Minsk ghetto. You know that unfortunately, the Museum of the History of the Great Patriotic War only features a very small exposition, a very small round of exhibits dedicated to Minsk ghetto. A number of reasons to that, organizational, exhibitional, and so on. I won't dwell on that too much. But nonetheless, the academic work to study Minsk ghetto's history has never been more active. Tomorrow, we are holding a roundtable at the Museum of the History of the Great Patriotic War. There will be an expo dedicated to the 80th anniversary of Minsk ghetto, featuring Yuri Krupenkov, the artist, and the Museum of Jewish Culture in Belarus. So I would like to invite everyone to the roundtable, to the exhibition, 11 through 1:30 p.m. Minsk time, 11 a.m., 1:30 p.m. To build on the presentations by Frida Reisman, by Valery, indeed, many questions lack a specific, unambiguous answer. I will not list all those questions. I will just say one thing. Long before the Jewish ghettos, the Nazis have tried out the system of singling out various strata of the population, friend and foe, and the foes were taken out to live in a segregated location. Particularly here in Belarus, Belarus has become the first republic of the USSR that was subjected to the first blow of the Nazi military machine. This is where they tried out the new mechanism of mass extermination. Well, very sophisticated methods. Belarus was used by the occupants, and we can state it as kind of a quote-unquote kind of a landfill. So this is what they use in the history for inadequate or unworthy racial elements. People were supposed to be landfill. So there were special cars, special vans to help with the killing of the people. This is where, again, Minsk became the so-called academic center for various ways of researching researching the killing of unworthy people, unworthy according to the Nazi ideology. The Minsk ghetto is unique in its as such. It is unique in academic research from this perspective, particularly. 3 different groups of population were kept and exterminated at the same time. We must talk about this. We must remember. It was the 3rd biggest after the Warsaw and Lviv in Poland and Ukraine, respectively. Minsk ghetto was the 3rd biggest in Europe. Not many people remember this. And it's not just the local Jews and those who fled from the Western Oblast of Belarus. It was also the Western European Jews, the deportees, who were brought here. Various countries, so everybody knows that. Germany, Austria, Czech Republic, Slovakia, Poland, the Netherlands. Those deportees are very difficult to investigate. I mean the interaction between the local Jews and the Western European Jews. Those relations were not always simple. And this is the unique nature of the Minsk ghetto, its international features. A lot of topics for research here, a lot of contemplation about why Hitler believed Jews to be the children of hell in a very cold-blooded manner. Again, cruelly in the cold-blooded manner, Hitler spoke that the future of Germany is really dependent on the successful Drang nach Osten. So if we conquer the East and if we kill the Jews, Germany will be happy. So somebody says that the Jews were simply picked as scapegoats just to get the foreign policy goals met. But it's not all that simple. If those murders, executions, pogroms, all those atrocities where people were shot en masse in the pits, burned in crematoria, killed on those gas vans, gas chambers. So this is beyond logic. This is beyond human nature. However, geopolitically, it's more or less clear. It was a worldwide campaign, a worldwide crime, where all the economic failures were supposed to, somebody had to take the blame for that. Again, the foreign policy goals were pursued that way. The Minsk ghetto, you know, it was around for quite a long time, more than 2 years, 2 years and 3 months. And again, not in vain, because many ghettos were liquidated much earlier. And only Minsk ghetto was liquidated on September the 21st or 23rd, 1943. The reasons for that are multifold as well. First of all, the Nazis, the Germans, used the qualified workforce from the ghetto that was servicing the rear of the Center Army Group of the Germans. Moreover, the Minsk ghetto, and there is no accurate figure, nobody will cite you that. Somebody says 80,000, 97,000, 100. Somebody's citing figures up to 150,000 prisoners. But again, there were echelons through ghetto to Trostenets. Well, simply the exact figures were not calculated. We cannot say that 130,000 people, for example, were exterminated in the Minsk ghetto. Some researchers, Mr. Smolovitsky, a well-known Jewish researcher, he cites that figure. The figure that is deemed classical, around 100,000. It's established in the historiography. I've done the math according to my research, 97,000 when I was doing more profound research on that. But again, figures are a stubborn thing. The numbers are a stubborn thing. Sometimes new documents come through and they affect the final figure that all of us want to know. Many prisoners of Minsk ghetto, they were exterminated in stages. And again, it's not in vain. from campaign to campaign. They couldn't kill them all at once, so they had to take time to do that, which is why Minsk ghetto was around for so long, more than 2 years. Now, another thing to point out, presently, the research in this aspect is done in many directions. A lot has been done by the historic workshop, by the Leonid Levin historic workshop. A lot is being done by the International Educational Center in Minsk, IBB Minsk. I mean, educationally. Research, including yours truly, academic research, a lot has been done to advocate this. Unfortunately, to my big dissatisfaction, well, to my biggest regret, I mean, there are not too many living survivors alive, and it's mostly people who were at young age back then. Frida, other participants, not necessarily from Minsk ghetto, when I see them present in conferences, Mr. Rosenstein, for example, Mikhail Rosenstein, was also very sincere and very open as to what was happening back then. He was telling that story like that, and it's worth a lot. It's very important. We don't have to. It's not just academic and educational work. We also need to advocate this. We need to promote this. There's a lot of right extremism in the Western European countries because of migration, economic crises. Unfortunately, we see neo-Nazi, anti-Semitism ideas growing. And unfortunately, yeah, this is the case. This is not to be disregarded. For this reason, we must, we historians and we members of the academia, educational community, we need to run these events, roundtables, commemorative events, conferences, because today's event, it's not just an anthem to remember those who perished. It's an anthem to life. And keeping the memory alive is the main point, is our main point, main objective. We need to pass it on to the next generation. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you very much, Sergey. Dear friends, in March this year, there was a 17th anniversary since the joint German-Belarusian project was unveiled, Leonid Levin workshop in Minsk. The building that you see in this picture, you all know full well. Those who don't know it, well, take a trip there, take a tour, have a look at what the team of that building is doing. As you know, that building used to be, or is where Minsk ghetto used to be. The prisoners of Minsk ghetto, they found refuge in the basement of this house. It's a unique fact. The Minsk International Educational Center became the owner of this site recently. Belarusians and Germans decided to reconstruct this building and prepare the new exhibition. Leonid Levin Historic Workshop is preparing this. It is my huge privilege and honor to give the floor to the director of this creative workshop, Galina Levina, Republican Foundation Holocaust, Belarus.
Добрый день, уважаемые друзья, онлайн и офлайн.
Good afternoon, dear friends, be that online or offline. Today is a special day, and it is a special honor for me to bring to the public discussion the project of reconstruction, retrofitting the Leonid Levin Historic Workshop. The 21 Sukhaya Streets building bears a lot of essence, or a lot of points related to Minsk ghetto and Holocaust. Its history is particularly special when you consider this site, this location in the city, in its development. It's kind of a marker in the history of the city and its dwellers. This marker causes us, well, not really remember. I would not like to use remembrance in this notion, in this sense. It gets us to think. It causes us to pause and think, to find the answers to the questions that have been cited here many times over. The questions posed before us by the Second World War, by the Great Patriotic War. Okay. Just a rank and file wooden house in a simple residential area, inhabited by common people. Kind of like a scar. Holocaust, the war, is affecting this area. 1944, once again, a common wooden house, common residents of the city found refuge there. Our project of retrofitting and modernization, or reconstruction and retrofitting, it makes it an exhibit. Let me show you the chart. This is the former Jewish cemetery here. This is the Jewish Memorial Park of today. I have highlighted the area of the 25 Sukhaya Street house location. This is the land plot that the Minsk Executive Committee allocated for the reconstruction. This is the entrance to the Frudinsk metro station. So very convenient transportation approaches, subways nearby, the metro, and also you can access it from any direction. There are adjacent roads. The avenues of approach are good. So an important thing for us was the fact that the historical workshop, and the IBB granted special archive research and bibliographical research to look into the history of this building, because what we see today at that address, the building has been subjected to multiple changes, extensions, the exterior, the annexes, the attempts to rebuild it. I beg your pardon, for some reason my slides just won't click over. Right. So even though the building is not a historical value, is not of historic value, we still complied with all the rules applying to buildings of historic significance. This is the historic note, the blueprint coming from Irina Kashtalyan and the IBB Minsk. This is the plan. This is the land plot that I've allocated. In late 19th, early 20th century, it was adjacent to the Jewish cemetery. The road that is nearby right now, it was not there. This is the historic plan. This is the cemetery below, which is how we were able to come up with the graphic reconstruction. We were able to reconstruct it graphically. These blueprints show the reconstructions and retrofittings at various stages. Upper left, late 19th, early 20th century, 1949, upper right, 1959, lower left, and 2004, present day, lower right. This is the building that you can see today. This way, we've been able to eliminate all the irrelevant things, and we've been able to maintain the core of the building. The core of the building related to the pre-war time, pre-war era, and the ghetto period, where when the building used to house the prisoners of the ghetto. Although in our discussion, an important fact is what was happening afterwards in the post-war years. This building was treated as evidence of wartime and occupation-related events in Nazi occupation-related events in Minsk. This was a wooden barn back then. There was an annex, a residential, and a cellar were built on the left and on the right, respectively. So there were pitting and probing done to show the timeline at which point every particular annex was built next to that barn. This is the present day appearance of the building. Let me point out an important detail there is a stumbling block in Europe, you know, this project. I believe that our historic workshop, it serves as a building block, a meeting site, a meeting venue. When there are modern facades of the buildings nearby, surrounding areas, that propels us in the modern day Minsk, we don't always pause and think what is related to or what is connected to a specific site. The historical workshop gives us this opportunity. It's a snapshot in time. This is how, in this urban setting, a building like this can still be. What is this building? It's a kind of a stumbling block. You walk nearby, you stumble upon it, and you start taking interest. What's it doing there? You start getting interested with history. This is the land plot I was referring to. When working on the project, and this was the main thing, we wanted to preserve the historical core, the historic building. And we wanted to build a modern annex, but that annex was not supposed to dominate over the wooden core. There's always an attempt to make something grand, to create something big. I just wish to emphasize, this is not a Holocaust museum. This is the site that is directly related to the Minsk ghetto and Trostenets. On this land plot, well, the entrance will be from a different side. It will be from the Sukhaya Street. So this road will be here, and so taking a walk in this part of the city, you will notice something unusual: the yellow cobblestones. So this is a sign to take a detour and visit the historic workshop building. We wanted to show the original blueprints because this was the residential built-up, the development of Minsk of back then. I believe it's very special. It's unique in its way, and we are able to show it like this, to showcase it like this. This is the future appearance of the building. We will keep the original building, the wooden building, and we will build an annex, something modern. We wanted to make a concrete building, kind of like falling down on those standing before it. Leonid Levin, who gave his name to this workshop, he liked concrete a lot. But as we progressed, some changes were made to the facade. And now this facade has this appearance, future appearance. We wanted to make something fragile, glass and steel, to show us the fragile nature, the fragility of the world, the fragility of peace in the country, in the family, in communities, fragility and transparency at the same time. What we're doing to commemorate the memory, to commemorate the victims of Holocaust, and the Holocaust, and the kind of concrete is multifactorial. It's a reference to Leonid Levin's creative works, and it also serves to commemorate the victims of Holocaust. We suggest making an entrance like this. It's a composition of the days of the ghetto. It was mentioned here today how many years and how many days ghetto was around, ghetto existed. I believe it would be interesting from the viewpoint of writing a diary of Minsk ghetto. Every day since its establishment could have been outlined as a story, a particular story dating back to each particular day of each day of ghetto's existence. Then you could look at a specific square next to the building entrance. You could check out the story of or the history of that day in the Minsk ghetto. This is the main facade from the Sukhaya Street. This is yet a design concept. We planted an apple tree before the entrance. It's part of the garden part of the world, part of peace that was typical for the Jewish neighborhoods in Minsk. Not just Jewish neighborhoods, of course, but for Jews, an apple is meaningful, especially in Rosh Hashanah. So each element in a particular setting, it has multiple senses, multiple ideas, multiple concepts. So it's kind of like we hover a cursor over, and then you click it, and then you read, and then you decipher the story that's unraveling before you. You interpret it your own way. This is the appearance of the facade along the Sukhaya Street. This is the building facade from the Collectorna Street, the opposite street. We felt it important to make this probing into the past, and we wanted to show see that wooden bit in the first third. We wanted it to be instrumental for the guys who are doing the tours, because this building from all angles gives a very rich opportunity to proceed with the story. The most important thing is also the blueprints. What are we going to see there? What we're going to know when we open the building's door. All in all, I'm not an advocate to referring to this building as an information center. Well, it's very important to talk about info centers because they are important as a kind of a keyboard, computer keyboard, that you whose keys you click to get some knowledge, to get search queries in and the answers out. I want the building that we're designing, I want the concept of the building that we're contemplating. We want it to be like a pulsing nerve, on the territory of the former Minsk ghetto. We wanted we wanted to show why it's not supposed to happen ever again. Facts, yes. Witnesses, yes. But why not? Why never again? We want this building to serve as an answer to that question. It's important when visiting that building, when touching that building, when contemplating it in the architectural urban setting, modern city, we want to be able to ask questions and come up with the right answers. There must not be any hatred against humans for racial or for any other principle. And even if some group of people starts to manifest that, we must be ready to combat that. We must be ready to come with a shield against it. So how this mechanism, how these annals came to be, why we're talking about the tragedy of the Belarusian Jews, European Jews, tragedy here. How do we use the architecture, the landscape planning, landscaping design? How do we make it that it's not just us groping for answers, looking for answers? We want to make sure that these events never repeat themselves, the events that have happened 8 decades ago. Right, the blueprint. We access the building through the lobby, entrance lobby. The internal wall of the building becomes part of the interior. And we finally see that The building itself is an exhibit in the city. The building itself is an exhibit. And it's also part of the exhibit, part of the exhibition. There will be some office spaces here. There will be some service rooms, service staff rooms. This is the exhibition part in yellow. Irina Kashtalyan will proceed to talk about it. The building involves a cellar, like a basement story. There will be some premises for interest clubs, some technical rooms, the exposition room of the safe house that was mentioned here, and the exhibition hall in the basement floor. Completing my presentation, I wish to say this. This site is a safeguard for us, for me and you, from the loss of memory. It is safeguarding us from the loss of memory. And the fact that, thanks to the sponsors listed in these roll-ups here in the posters, it's a major event, thanks to what they've done, thanks to what the organizers have done. Maybe we're following our schedule very strictly, and we have a reason for doing that. But possibly it is one of those rare occasions today to express our emotions and to pass them on to the next generation. Because if we only speak, if we only operate with facts, unless we say why we care about those facts, unless we mention, and it's us, it's still our generation that is ringing the bell, because Frida's generation, our parents' generation, were ringing the bell. All those sitting here, they rang the bell, they screamed to be heard, to tell the story of the Minsk ghetto, what it used to be. And if in a peaceful society, in a happy society, happy in its day-to-days, joys and routines, if there are no people screaming about this memory, crying about this memory, so that it is heard through the generations, well, in that case, it will be difficult for us to preserve empathy and to keep feeling, to keep our emotions. Thank you.
Спасибо большое, Галина. Как я уже сказал, у нас два идут
Thank you so
параллельно.
much, Galina. There are two concurrent processes. One of them is prepping the retrofitting, the reconstruction. And there's another parallel project, the exposition, the exhibition. Maybe it's an optimistic forecast, so everybody's asking this question: when is the historical workshop going to be reconstructed? Best case scenario, until late this year, the feasibility study and the designing paperwork will be done, because it's only the preliminary design that what Galina has shown. The detailed cost estimates and design must be prepared by year end, and then the building will have to be modernized physically. If everything goes according to plan, best case scenario, October 21st, 2022. Beg your pardon, 2023. October 21st, 2023. We will open the reconstructed historical workshop together with a new exposition. By the way, about that new exposition, there's a team of people working, joint Belarusian German team. Irina Kashtalyan, director of the historical workshop, will now showcase the outcomes. Thank you very much, Victor, for the opportunity to speak on behalf of the team. I'll try to be concise because we're behind schedule as we are. Everybody is tired. They want to see the play or to hear the play that is scheduled in the agenda. I would like to carry on this relay that Galina has started. It is indeed a bilateral process. One part, the physical building, cannot exist with the exhibition and vice versa. So maybe I will overlap, maybe in some cases I'll elaborate on the new things. Today we've heard many perspectives of educational centers, such as like the Museum of Jewish History and Culture, Belarusian Museum of the History of the Great Patriotic War. The farther in time, the more interest the topic of Holocaust is. Educational space, museum space, this is a reason for joy. We want this topic to be properly displayed, to be properly expressed. We want the topic to be properly manifested. The second largest ghetto in the former Soviet Union, Minsk ghetto, it deserves commemoration forever and ever. Educational events, educational practices must also be centered around it. Now I would like to introduce the concept that we've come up together with the team, together with the partners. There were so many stages of approvals and coordination. Many of you who have participated here, participated in the focus groups. Our target audience is you, the former prisoners and your close ones. It's the young people, it's the multiplicator teachers, and the general public, the tourists that came to our workshop and who talked about this presentation. We believe that the many-year experience, 17 years is a long time, the many-year experience helps us offer a sustainable result, a certain sustainable result when featuring this concept. Of course, the starting point was the purchase of the building in 2020. After that, we started the planning phase, which is also a pleasant thing. You have seen the reconstruction effort to be done. You have heard quite a lot of discussion about educational practices. We want this exhibition to serve further cooperation and reconciliation between Belarus and Germany, because we are a Belarusian German project. Part of our mission is the support of the previous prisoners of the ghetto, survivors of Holocaust, eyewitnesses of the Second World War in the context of the all-European cultural remembrance. The building is small, you've seen the blueprints right now, so there are some limitations as to the amount of information we can feature there. For this reason, we decided to focus the expo around the topic of the Minsk ghetto and the Malый Trostянец death camp that was related to it. At the same time, we will show the scale of this tragedy of Holocaust and the victims of the events of wartime, in Belarus. Right now, a few structural elements that will be featured in the expo. It's three modules, the past, the present, and the future. More of them to come. Now I'd just like to elaborate that the red line across the exposition will be biographies, everyday life in the wartime, and resistance, the topic of resistance. We worked with designers. You know that our key color is yellow. It is associated with the Star of David, with the patch, the yellow patch that the ghetto inmates ghetto prisoners had to carry. The designer helped us come up with some colors that can be represented. These are the modules with some color solutions, color accent in modules, Minsk ghetto particularly. You've seen the blueprints shown by Galina here. I would like to elaborate on the location of the exhibition proper. Now, on the one hand, our building is not going to rise up in order not to suppress the historic core, the wooden house. At the same time, we'll be able to go down into the ground to have additional classes, for example, for educational work on the topic. The historical part will be below the permanent exhibition. You see the color solutions, which modules are going to be featured. This green one, the olive one, it's the first one. It's the history of the building. It will be dedicated to the history of the building. The second biggest one, the history of the ghetto, in the central part in red. this dark green, the memory of the Minsk ghetto, and we've also come up with this concept of a reflection room where people can sit down and remember on what they've learned. It's a serious topic. Its burden on the shoulders of the visitors will be high. So we want people to reflect. We want them to ask questions when those questions come to their heads. It's kind of a follow-up room. And you see a square in the middle. It will be a kind of a glass cube to the basement, to the cellar. The safe house used to be here. It's not yet a proven fact, but there will be research still to be done on that. Now check out the basement. Basically, the semi-basement floor, well, it will be dedicated to salvation, to safe houses. Maybe there will be a place for viewings of feature films and documentaries dedicated to the Minsk ghetto, kind of like a cinema hall. Also, for those coming to us to work, there will be separate multimedia-backed programs with access sites to the workshop, so that people, if desiring, would be able to will be able to delve deeper into the topic if they have questions and access us, the history experts. Now, going forward to the specific modules, one of the last remaining houses of the Minsk ghetto, I know, so I realize where this title is coming from. This module tells the visitors what kind of place they've come to, what's in store for them there. This starts from the landscape, from the Jewish cemetery. It will be remembered there. The history of the building, the pre-war era, the peculiar features of the Jewish community living there. And at that point, we will gradually switch to the history of the building and the project of Leonid Levin Historical Workshop. The biggest part in the ghetto is the biggest part of the information. So what kind of ghetto, what kind of ghetto existed in Belarus, and not just Belarus? The war of extermination or war of annihilation, the Minsk ghetto, establishment, liquidation, resistance of the Minsk ghetto, places of mass killings, so other landscapes of violence in Minsk, like Shirokaya Street camp. The ways to salvation, particularly in the basement, it will be covered with the righteous among the nations. Possibly there will be some references to other ghettos and the groups of victims of war in Belarus. There will be a special section on the underground. The underground would have been impossible without the help from the local population living there, the underground movement. The third module is the memory of the Minsk ghetto, the future. This module will showcase the history of memories development about the Minsk ghetto, including the links to the Malotrastenets death camp. The phase of memory being kept alive, individual memory, collective memory, and internationalization of memory together with the German partners. We understand that the second module is a very big one. At the same time, they're all of equal significance, and it will be reflected in the way we execute them in physical form. The content will be made next year. The sub-teams, subtopics will come and go, will be refined, will be expanded, or vice versa. Part of the module is in the basement. The basement will be talking about salvation and resistance as well. It will be a multi-layered exhibition. The exhibition may not be structured chronologically. I mean, you don't have to follow the chronology. You could just follow the red lines, particular topics, resistance or specific biographies, or the topic of salvation. So different groups will find it interesting to come to the workshop again and again, and they will have the shared historic memory to imbibe. The content, we will focus the photography, documents, and texts. The sites from the 20th century Minsk, including the personal belongings of the witnesses of the events, pictures, documents from family archives, cinemas, videos, films, videos, movies, blueprints, drawings, paintings, printed materials, eyewitness accounts, memoirs, interviews, oral and written, and original exhibits, as well as multimedia. And the most important thing, what Victor has mentioned before me, we hope that everything runs according to plan. The work will be completed in 2023, celebrating the 20th anniversary of the workshop. It will be a symbolical thing. That 2023 will go down in history by opening a professional exhibition. We believe that everyone will find a spot there for themselves. Thank you.
Спасибо, Ирина. Дорогие друзья, что важно в этом контексте сказать, это то, что все происходит совершенно официально, как говорится. То есть вот
Thank you, Irina. I wish to say that everything has been happening completely officially. It was approved in the Committee on Architecture and Construction of Minsk, so it's a legitimate design. I mean, we can proceed for the next stage, cost estimates and detailed design. The concept of the new exhibition has been approved by Minsk participants in the city of Minsk. So these elements have been dedicated, have been approved, and they will be commemorated. The topic of Minsk ghetto is manifold. I mean, is multidimensional. It's very interesting to not just academicians, members of the academia, scientists. It's also culturally interesting. We want to feature the Memoria Nominis Clara play by Theatre Studio Sept. We now give the opportunity for the team of the theater studio to prepare. In the meantime, I'd like to give the floor to Ksenia Shtarenkova, who will give a brief account of this theatrical project about to be staged. So the reading of the play. Dear friends, please go ahead. Thank you very much. First and foremost, I wish to thank the organizers of the event for the opportunity to join this meaningful, important event with my project, Memoria Nominis Clara. I'm the playwright. I put this together last year within the special theatrical laboratory, the pre-made world, supported by the Art Cooperation Center in Minsk. Last year, this play was featured in the Teatr 10 theatrical forum. This year, we have yet another opportunity to access the new stage of the promotion of this project jointly with the Sept Theatre Studio and the Tretий Akt podcast. There was an audio play, audio reading of that play. Now we're doing it offline and online in this joint project. As for the play itself, the play is dedicated to the Minsk pit, to the Yama Memorial. It's partly dedicated to my great-grandmother Clara, who was the prisoner at Auschwitz. Also, Lazar Rana inspired me to create this play. Gloria Rana, my friend, I would like to give her my best regard. She basically provided the graphics of this project and some other materials. I wish to thank my friend for that. The play itself is a fictional story. It's a piece of fiction that is nonetheless an attempt to get through, to talk about the events, to talk about them with those who are not around to witness that. So it's a dialogue between the present and the past, when you don't have the opportunity to go back in history, to address the things you're anxious about, the things that pertain you, the things that might hurt you, some hurtful past. So, concluding my introductory address, I wish to thank my friends and colleagues from the SEPT Theater Studio and the Tretий Akt podcast. So with joint effort, we've been able to prepare it, and we have the opportunity to act it out in front of you. And I would like to send my best regards to my family and to my friends who are watching this on Zoom right now. Thank you very much. Dear friends, we need literally 1 minute to technically arrange that 1 minute break.
Действие пьесы происходит в Минске.
The play is set in Minsk, in the ravine of the lower city, which will later become known as the pit, Yama. This is the site where 5,000 Minsk ghetto Jews were killed on March 2nd, 1942. In 1947, a memorial to the Holocaust victims was erected in the pit. The time of action is March 1941, March 1942, and present days, intertwined with the characters' memories and dreams. All the characters are fictional, and any resemblance to persons living or dead is coincidental. Traitor. You're a traitor. How could you leave them? Well, go ahead, tell me. Can you tell me? Great. You're always like this. Always and only like this. Well, of course. It's easier this way. Blame everyone. Act like a victim. Have you considered them? Have you given a thought about what had happened to them? Do you know who you are? You're a coward, Grandpa. That's who you are. You can't be here. You have no right to this place. You just don't. Never had it. And you won't. Ever. Spring started the wrong way. The spring back then, that spring. And this one too, apparently. although it's not about spring, of course. Every Minsk spring starts like this. I mean, it doesn't start like at all. The calendar kind of hints that it should have already arrived, but it feels like it'll never come again. So if you think about it, it was all wrong from the very start. Probably from the workshop fire. After all, the great-grandfather left then. Or did he leave earlier? My great-grandfather was an artist. After returning to Minsk, he spent his whole life painting one and the same place. This place, right here. Always the same composition, only different people. His family. The only person missing there is his wife, my great-grandmother. I just kept trying to imagine what she was like. I even thought I'd paint her myself, but I just never got around to it. I could imagine anyone from our family, but not her for some reason. It's like she's not there. That is, I definitely know that she existed. I do exist, right? And everyone before me as well. But there's nothing left from her, not even a picture. I only know her name. It's Clara. Clara, and that's all. My great-grandmother, who was born in the city, walked through its streets, then met my great-grandfather when he moved there, fell in love with him, and he fell in love with her. Who offended you? Well, go ahead, tell me. You can tell me. Who do you think you are to what? To what? Who do I think I am to what? Here, take it. Do whatever you please with them. Why are you doing this to me? Great. I always like this. Always and only like this. Well, of course, it's easier this way. Blame everyone, act like a victim. You have no right to this. You have no right to any of this. This is, after all, this is wrong. So wrong. Why would he never paint Clara? Too bad I can't ask my great-grandfather anymore. I didn't know him either. We kind of look the same, him and I. They even wanted to name me after him. Well, they wanted to at first, and then it turned out I kind of look like him. I also want to become an artist in his honor. Never worked out. I was probably too scared, or maybe tried too hard. Tried to prove something, not to imitate, not to become his shadow. So I decided not to become an artist. No, I'm very proud that he is my great-grandfather. Just being the great-grandson of a famous artist is a heck of a job. Burns you from the inside. It's easier not to be one at all. Clara, admit it, you're Jewish. What? Are you offended? But what's wrong with that? Lova, I'm done answering your jokes. I already have a bad heart. I'm not joking at all. And your heart, by the way, I take care of tirelessly. I'm not Jewish. You were named after Tsetkin. What does Tsetkin have to do with it? Well, how about the fact that she's also Jewish? Tsetkin isn't a Jew. It's her husband who's an out-and-out one. Don't joke with me like that, Clara. I'm not joking. It's true. Tsetkin's husband is Jewish, just like yours. Lova, how come you're the only one who may joke about Jews? Well, because I'm a Jew myself. But you can't, since you're not Jewish. So let's not joke anymore. Never? No, never again. Think carefully, though. Maybe you are Jewish after all, huh? I'm not a Jew, and you know it full well. I'm a Belarusian, Lova. A Belarusian. Right. There's only Jews living here in Minsk. Not true. Have you anything against it? Lova, well, here we go again. It's you who said only Jews, but in fact, there's an old Russian cemetery across the river. And right over there, Tatar market gardens. And a bit further, Lakhovka, where the Poles live. Didn't you know? What I don't know is where the gypsies live here. I often see them at the marketplace, but where they settle. All right, gypsies. But tell me, Clara, where do Belarusians live in Minsk? What do you mean, where? Belarusians are everywhere. Well, they must also have some special area. Why would Belarusians need a special area in Minsk? It's a Belarusian city, Lova. What? Minsk is a Belarusian city, and I'm a Belarusian. Clara, what kind of Belarusian are you? You don't even speak your own language. Is that so necessary to be Belarusian? Do you speak Yiddish to be Jewish? How can I speak Yiddish if I'm talking to you? You won't understand a thing. But it doesn't make you stop being a Jew. Because what matters is not the language you speak. It's the one you think in. Clara. Take you, Clara. Which language do you think in? I need to think about it. I don't know. See? You need to think about it. There's nothing to think about it. You always just know what language you're thinking anyway. But it depends on the situation. Right now, I'm thinking about you in one language. As for the city, for example, I always think in a completely different one. So I'm a stranger to you in your city. Clara, sometimes it feels that you love your city more than me. But I sometimes feel as if you don't love either my city or me. You're very silly, Clara. I love your city. Love it very much, as long as you are in it. I'm so happy you're painting again. I need to talk to you after all. Aren't we talking now? We're not talking about the right thing right now. By the way, why didn't you ask me what language I think in? Because it seems to be clear enough. No, it's not clear. Ask me. I want to talk to you about something else. Ask me and then we'll talk about something else. What language do you think, Lova? That's right, Clara. What language can I think in if I'm an artist? I think in images. Think how good it is. I don't have to decide in which language to think about everything I love. What's the matter? Nothing. Well, what's wrong again? You're a bonehead, that's what. Now I'll have to redo it. You haven't really started yet. I'll redo it anyway. Too late. This picture is already done. And besides, it's perfect. Lova, you're a bonehead. Now, why is that? Because you're always in a hurry and fail to see the main thing. Is that right? I guess I got the form right, and the tone is all right too. You're a bonehead, Lova. The light is so poor. It's not about the light at all. Explain it to me, Clara. Why have you brought me here? This place is little good for the open air, you know. I wanted to paint the city. The city. It's just a ravine, a pit. No, not just, Lova. Are you saying that I failed to main the thing, to see the main thing again? Apparently so. Well, explain it to me. Just promise me you won't laugh. You see, Lova, this place, it's like it's special. It's kind of like it's mine. I feel everything very keenly here. Everything that was and is. How about what will be? Oh, all I have to do for that is look at your smug face. I'm flattered. What are you doing? I feel the link of times, Lova. Is it really not clear? In this pit. By God, Clara, we'd be better off going to the upper town, me and you. At least you can see something from there. I don't know, I don't feel anything there. Everyone goes there, and it's like there's nothing left for me over there. And this place is special. There is something here, something kind of feels important, particularly for me, and it's so quiet, so serene. The upper city is very windy today. You can catch a cold, and I can't do that, no way. What's that supposed to mean? It means that you're a bonehead, Lova, that's all. Clara. I love you. You wanted to say something else. I've said just now what I wanted to. What did you want to say, Lova? That this place is also drafty, by the way. Although, wait, I still wanted to say that I love you. No, you wanted to say something else. Clara, is it really important, so important now? Of course it is. What could be more important than the fact that I love you, that I'm expecting? Expecting? Like a baby? You can't. Why can't I, Lova? Have you forgotten? Forgotten what? You can't. The doctor said last fall, you can't have a child. This is wrong, so wrong. Why? You know that yourself. Nonsense. You won't have this child. How dare you? I said you won't. Great. You're always like this. Always and only like this. Well, you know how it can end. Maybe you let me decide for myself. Again? Again what, Lova? You're always deciding everything yourself. You even decide for me, Clara. You decide everything for me at home as well. When I'm working even, it's you who calls the shots for some reason. I barely have the time to think. Maybe you just need to think faster. All right. Decide for yourself. I already have. Then why do you need me, huh? Oh, that's right, I don't. Clara, are you sure? I'm sure. Have you considered it well? Is decision final? It's final. And you don't feel sorry for your heart. Whose heart, Lova? Well, certainly not mine. You don't seem to care about mine at all. Lova, you were going somewhere. At least don't stand in the draft. You'll catch a cold. Lova, you're a coward. Why have you come? I wanted to paint. I decided to paint it all. I can't do it anymore. That's right. Arbeit macht frei. Are you a fool? What do you mean? Actually, my great-grandmother was in Auschwitz. How is that relevant? Don't you know that there's a sign right there above the gate? What sign? Arbeit macht frei. I'm sorry, that's not what I meant. But you're not Jewish, are you? Right, so if I'm not Jewish, I'm not entitled to talk about it. As if Auschwitz only had Jews. Your great-grandmother died there? She survived. She survived it. After the war, she returned to Minsk to die of a heart attack later. Heart attack? Yes. Couldn't bear the disappointment. What kind of disappointment? No matter. How did she get there? Where to? To Auschwitz. Well, she was just a girl. She probably wasn't even 16. She decided to play an underground agent here in Minsk. Went to some dancing. They were going to recruit someone there or something. Then the raid happened. She was taken away with everyone. Good thing she ended in a cell with a woman. She was still quite young. They had just finished interrogating her. She told my grandma not to admit anything. She said, cry, call your mother. That's it. Otherwise, she would have been killed the next morning. She had such dark hair and facial features, as if a little looked like she was a Jew. Well, not really. She was Russian. They moved to Minsk with the father as late as 1939. And in 1941, as soon as the Germans came to the city, he went missing in the first few days. And she stayed behind, alone. At least they didn't kill her. Although you can't say that she lucked out, but at least she survived. I guess if it wasn't for that woman, they would have killed her for sure. And what about that woman herself? Don't know. They took her away in the morning. I think she was helping rescue children from the ghetto. They probably killed her, shot to death, or hanged. They executed her. Did your great-grandmother tell you this? No, I never knew her. Never knew mine either. What was her name? Clara. Really? Mine was also named Clara. I was named after her. We had different great-grandmothers, right? Enough of that, perhaps. Enough of what? What are you doing? Yeah, the light is poor. And it's really cold. So go ahead home. I can't. My family died here. What do you mean, your family? Well, except for my great-grandfather, of course, the only survivor. It's funny. After all, he survived only thanks to that fire. No, though, it's not funny at all. All the others were killed. Where did you come from then? Meaning what? You said that your great-grandfather's entire family was killed. But you exist, don't you? Did he have another family before the war? Another family? Why? The family is always a family. Clara? Why did you do it back then, Clara? How could you? I'll never forgive you for this. I'll never forgive you ever. Everything has burned, Clara. Everything inside me has burnt out. Nothing's left. Why have you done this to me? Have you thought about what it was like for me? Thought about how I had to live with this? Maybe you thought I could move on somehow. What was in store for me? You know, I can never love this child. And everyone before him, and whoever comes after him as well. I don't love her. And I will never do. I don't want this. This shouldn't have happened. I hate you, Clara, and I hate your city. Larka? Larka, stop. Where are you off to, Larka? You always said that in the city, the sunsets from your windows are the most beautiful. When you left, I kept thinking, what is it you see from your workshop windows? After all, we have never seen these sunsets. And it seemed to me that without them, you're homesick, missing the house where your mother and sisters stayed over, as if my house is not really a home for you. I was really afraid that you wouldn't see sunsets in the workshop either. And when you come back, you will understand that our house is no different. And then you'll be gone forever. So I was hoping that you couldn't even see the sky from the workshop. Then I saw your painting. It was a house and the sunset and the woman and the boy in the middle. I thought you painted me and my kids, but I thought, how come? Because it was too early. Yeah, how could you know? How could you have known it's a boy? But you said it was your mother and you. And then the workshop burned down and you moved to Moscow. I had a dream then. I dreamed that you were my son. I was terribly scared. I tried not to imagine what a child would be like. I was afraid I wouldn't guess, that I'll think about something the wrong way, it won't work out. So I decided I'd be better off imagining our grandchildren. I made a wish so that you and I could see our grandchildren together. And if we're lucky, even our great-grandchildren, because then it will definitely work. It will work out. I only wish my heart wouldn't fail me. But for some reason, I just couldn't imagine everything properly. Everything was bits and pieces in a way. I haven't seen any future without you in it. I haven't seen what would have happened. I've never seen the sunsets from your windows either. That time I came, the sky was overcast. Your mother glanced at me briefly and turned away. She started talking to her neighbor as if I wasn't there. What did she say back then? These are not our people, but what does it mean? She had said something else then, hasn't she? That's nonsense. I was so afraid that I wouldn't survive childbirth. As it turned out, I had nothing to worry about. You'll have another Clara. My gentle girl, my bright queen. What would you call her? What would you call her, Lova? Lova? Who offended you? Well, go ahead, tell me. You can tell me. Who do you think you are to what? To what? Who do I think I am to what? My God, why are you doing this to me? Is it what I asked for? The light is going out. You hear me? It's already dark. And it's cold too. You'll catch a cold. No? It's time to get ready. Why did you come here in the first place? This place is little good for the open air, you know. You can't see anything anymore. The light is out. Wait, I'm almost done. Leave it as it is. No, it'll only take a little time. You'll just ruin everything. I won't ruin anything. It will only be better this way. It definitely won't. Now there will be nothing at all. Not true. As Clara, the great-grandmother, used to say, it has never been so that somehow it wouldn't work out. It's always been so that somehow it would. Great-grandmother Clara, Larushka. Why do you always talk about her and her only? You probably have at least 3 other great-grandmothers, and even more so, every great-grandmother had a great-grandfather. I know all about them, maybe even more than I would like to. Apparently, you know everything about her too. That's the whole point. I don't. It's as if I see her entire story, as if I see her whole, but the details elude me. It's like I'm missing something important all the time. We still have some photos at home. She's very young, and from later on, from when she was already married and with children too, with grandchildren. Anyhow, there are photos of her at all ages, but she kind of looks the same. The turn of the head, a particular kind of smile, just like the movie actresses, movie stars of that era, and those huge cornflower blue eyes. Cornflower blue? Why, yes. How do you know? You've never met her, and the photos are probably black and white. I've been told. By whom? Doesn't matter. I'm looking at her photos and can't figure her out, no matter how hard I try. I think I've heard so much about her, but I don't understand what she was like. And most importantly, I can't ask anymore. Can't ask whom. Who told you about her? My great-grandfather. You haven't talked him about before. You haven't talked about him before. Why talk about him? Did you know him? Yes? Lucky you. Not really. Why do you say that? Because being the great-granddaughter of a famous artist is a hell of a job. It's kind of like it burns from the inside. Was your great-grandfather an artist? Yes, he started in Vitebsk like many people. Then he moved with his mother and sisters to Minsk. They seem to have some relatives who lived here. They settled here. He started getting orders. He painted portraits, illustrated books, generally worked in many areas. How did he die? Why do you ask? Answer me. He died here. Well, you told me you are not Jewish. I'm not Jewish. And how did your great-grandfather die here? I didn't say that he died here. I said that he perished here. This happened later, but yes, my great-grandfather was Jewish. But this does not mean that I'm also Jewish. It is considered only on the maternal side. So take into account the change of generations and side mixing of blood from all other sides. I don't even know who to consider myself, to be honest. A Belarusian, probably. Although this is also a controversial point. I don't even speak Belarusian. What difference does it make which language you speak? You're an artist. Exactly. My great-grandfather always said the same thing to me. What does it matter what language you speak and thinking if you're an artist? You have to think in images. Only this is nonsense. All people think in images. It's only artists who for some reason think that they're so special. And they're the same as everyone else. But you're an artist too. Am I any different from others? Or do you think my great-grandfather was different? So he lived and worked in Minsk. Yes. Just before the war, he left for Moscow. And after he returned to Minsk, he would paint the same place over and over again. This place right here. Always the same composition, only different people. His family. Only this is such hypocrisy. What? Aren't you proud that he's your great-grandfather? Nothing to be proud of here.
Ты знаешь, я очень виновата перед ним.
You know,
Я
I'm
так виновата, и я уже не
very
хочу
sorry for him.
сказать ему об этом. Я специально пришла.
I'm so sorry, and I will never tell him about it again. I came here on purpose,
Лучше, и я бы всё забыла совсем.
although it would be better if I forgot everything altogether.
Я помню.
I should have forgotten that time, only I remember, and I always will.
Это уже не вытравлю.
I can't erase it with
Из-за
anything.
меня
It's because of
мы
me.
с ним сюда приходили,
When we came here with him, he said all the time, "Can you hear them? Can you hear? We can only hear them now. We cannot see them, but they can see us."
а я так злилась.
And I was so
Я
angry.
всегда на него так злилась. Я
I was so mad at him all the time.
ничего не
I
слышала.
came here and didn't hear anything,
Только ветер,
just the wind
больше ничего.
and nothing else.
Я никогда ничего не
I
чувствовала.
never felt anything when I was here.
Так и сказала ему, как
That's what I told him once. And now,
почему сейчас мне так больно?
why do I hurt so much right now?
Пойдем, уже темно.
It's getting dark. Let's go.
Пора выбираться из этой ямы.
It's time to get out of this pit. Let's go.
Пойдем. Пожалуйста, пойдем со мной. Нам пора.
Let's go. Come on.
Пойдем.
Please come with me. It's time to go.
Пойдем, я прошу тебя.
Let's go. I'm asking you.
Пожалуйста.
Let's. You can't be here. You have no right to this place.
Что?
What? You just don't. Never had it, and you won't ever.
Тогда отдай мне эскизы.
Then give me the sketches.
Отдай мне эскизы, слышишь?
Give me the sketches. Do you hear me? Where are they? What have you done to them? You have no right to them either.
Зачем ты ее так обижаешь?
Why are you hurting her so much?
Кого,
She
Лёва?
should be better. Better than whom, Lova? Better than whom?
Скажи мне.
Well, go ahead, tell me.
Тебе ты можешь сказать?
Can you tell
А
me?
мне ты можешь сказать?
Can you tell yourself?
У тебя лучше или
Better than you?
внуков лучше?
Better than your children, grandkids? You know that yourself.
За что ты так со мной?
Why are you doing this to me?
А ты?
And you?
Ты со мной за что?
Why are you doing this to me?
Зачем ты тогда это сделала?
Why did you do it back then? What did I do, Lova? You know that yourself.
Ты всегда
Great.
так.
You're always like this.
Только так.
Always and only like this.
Мне было, а?
Did you think what it was like for me?
Было, думала?
That I had to live with this? Did you think about it? Well, of course, it's easier this way. Blame everyone. Pretend to be a
А
victim.
знаешь, кто ты?
Do you know who you are?
Ну,
Well, tell me. Speak.
трусом меня хочешь назвать? Угадал?
Do you want to call me a coward? Did I guess right? A coward? You're a bonehead, Lova.
Замолчи.
Shut up.
Клара,
Clara?
я скучаю по тебе очень.
I miss you. I miss you
Сюда
so much.
представить тебя,
I came here to imagine you,
нас представить,
to imagine us,
никак не мог вспомнить тебя, твое лицо.
and I just couldn't remember you, couldn't remember your face.
Уже ничего не осталось после тебя.
I had nothing left after you.
Как я могу думать о тебе, если у меня ничего
How
нет?
can I think about you? You have nothing left.
Ты ведь знаешь, что тогда меня не
You
было.
know, I wasn't here back then.
Здесь мы с тобой были. До того, как
Me and you, we were here before I left. Don't you remember?
Твоя мать сделала все, что
Your mother did everything to make me forget.
она ведь как-то сказала мне,
She
что
once told me that I had no right to this
зачем ты
place.
говоришь о ней так?
Why are you talking about her like that? She is here now. They're all here now.
Когда я прихожу сюда вместо тебя,
Every time I come here, it's them instead of you. I want to remember your voice. And I only hear them. I don't remember your voice, Clara. Yes, I can hear them. I can remember the voices of all of them, but I can't remember yours. I just can't seem to. It's always just their voices.
Я же знаю, что они здесь, что с ними здесь произошло, знаю.
I know they're here. I know what happened to them here. I know what each of them felt. How can you know? You weren't here either. They look at me when I come here. Why do you think I only paint them? I mean, they're dead, Clara. But why are they watching? Why are they watching, Clara? Clara? Do you also think I'm a traitor? No, no, oh, come on. You didn't know what was going to happen. You couldn't have known. And she does. I can't even do anything anymore. I couldn't do anything back then. I can't now either. And I'll never be able to again. Larushka, will you ever forgive me? Leva, I've never been angry with you. Only I'm not Larushka. You forgot. But I miss her too. Well, and you said that you would never fall in love with her again. But I dream about you, Clara. Larka, come here. Today is the March the 2nd. Have you forgotten? Larka, you must remember. We should all remember this. I've been waiting for you all day so that we can come together here again. Grandfather, why do you always paint the same thing? Where's the sketchbook? I left it at home. It's already dark. You should paint more. You have to paint all the time if you want to be an artist. What's the point? Well, you paint all the time. Only it's always the same. What for? I owe it to them. And how come you never paint your great-grandmother? Don't you owe anything to her? How come you never paint her? You said it yourself. She loved you so much. She always tried so hard. This is completely different, Larka. What do you mean, different? She was also a victim. Does the concentration camp not count? What do you think, Larka? What is scarier? One of your great-grandmothers who survived Auschwitz, or 5,000 Jews killed here in 42. Is it possible to compare it this way? You would also ask what is more important for the history. But Larka, among these 5,000 was my family. Your family. Don't you feel connected to them? No, I don't. Here. Can you hear them? Can you hear that? We can only hear them now. We can't see them, but they do. They do see us. Nonsense. Larka, don't you dare say that. Don't you dare say that. We are indebted to them, but they're all dead. Isn't it more important to you who's left? And who is left? You, for example, and Larushka too. We met her later, when I returned to Minsk. What do you mean, returned? From the front or something? You didn't seem to have fought in battles. No, I didn't. I went to Moscow, even before the war. The whole family stayed over here.
Слушай, Ларка,
Listen, Larka,
у меня ведь здесь жена была.
I had a wife here after all.
Ребенок должен был родиться.
We had a baby coming,
Только я уехал.
except I left.
Зачем?
What for?
Я не мог здесь находиться.
I couldn't be here.
Не мог я здесь больше.
I couldn't stay here any longer.
Это невыносимо.
It was unbearable.
Всегда не любил этот город.
I've always disliked this city.
Потом же
Well,
полюбил, когда
then you
Ларушка
did fall
встретил.
in love when you met Larushka.
Или как?
Or what? No,
Не полюбил.
I didn't.
Твою прабабушку я тоже никогда не любил.
I never loved your great-grandmother either. She knew about it.
Она поэтому так
Is
рано
that
умерла.
why she died so early?
Она рано умерла из-за сердца.
She died young because of her heart.
Не удивлена.
For some reason, I'm not surprised. That's not my fault, Larka.
Как же не виноват?
How come?
Ты во всем виноват. Ладно,
It's
я
all your
не
fault.
ты,
Okay,
получается,
you didn't love her, but you left others behind, it turns out. You didn't love them either?
Прости, Ларка, я ничего не мог сделать.
Sorry, Larka, there was nothing I could do. Traitor.
Ты предатель.
You're a traitor.
Ты мог бросить их. Ну,
How could you leave them?
скажи,
Well, go ahead, tell me.
можешь сказать,
You can tell me.
почему ты их бросил?
Why would you leave them?
Ларка, подумай.
Larka, think carefully.
Если бы этого не случилось,
If this hadn't happened, you wouldn't have been born.
об этом ты не подумал.
Haven't you thought about that? Great.
Ты всегда так.
You're always like this.
Всегда и
Always and only like this.
Ты не понимаешь, что это было.
You don't understand what it was.
Каково мне было. Я не
What it was like for me. I couldn't go back. The war started. How would I come back?
Ну, конечно,
Well, of course.
проще всех обвинить.
It's easier this way. Blame everyone. Act like a victim.
Подумал,
Have you considered them?
что с ними стало? Ты
Have you given a thought about what had happened to them?
знаешь, кто ты?
You know who you are?
Ты трус, дед.
You're a coward, grandfather.
Вот ты кто.
That's who you are.
Ты не можешь быть здесь.
You can't be here.
У тебя нет права на это
You
место.
have no right to this place.
Нет у тебя этого
You just
права,
don't.
у тебя не было,
Never had it.
не будет уже
And
никогда.
you won't ever.
на сквозняке хотя бы не стоит.
At least don't stay in the draft.
Простудишься.
You'll catch a cold.
Лёв, вставай.
Лёва,
Вставай,
get
зачем
up.
ты сидишь?
Get up. Why are you sitting down?
Лёва, ты можешь мне
Лёва,
объяснить, что это
Can you
значит?
explain to me the meaning of this?
Что именно, Клара?
The meaning of what, Clara?
Вот эта фраза.
This phrase,
Наши люди.
these are not our people.
Где ты такое услышала?
Where'd you get that?
Мне это твоя мать сказала.
That's what your mother told me.
Ты поэтому тогда так сердилась?
Is that why you were so upset then? Then when?
Тогда утром.
Back in the morning, back then.
Помнишь, мы собирались на планер, и ты
Remember, we were going to the open air and you said all sorts of things to me. No, Lova, that was already later.
Я уже даже не помню.
And then there was some nonsense. I don't even remember anything anymore.
Лёва,
Although, no, I remember, of course.
я ведь про ребенка с тобой всё
I've been
время
trying to talk to you about having the baby all the time,
творчество.
and you have
Как будто они только
dragged out the torments of your creativity on and on, as if they only happened to you. So I got angry. But we did talk later. It would have been better if we hadn't talked at all then. It would have been better if this child never was born.
Так его ведь и не было, Лёва.
But there was none, Lova. There wasn't one. What do you mean?
Он и перестал быть.
There wasn't one. When you left, he ceased to be.
Клара,
Clara,
зачем ты это сделала?
why'd you do this?
Да я и не делала ничего.
I didn't do anything.
Я ничего не успела.
I didn't have the time to do anything.
Война, Лёва.
The war, Lova.
Скажи мне лучше, зачем ты тогда уехал?
Tell me better. Why did you leave then?
Ты знаешь,
You know,
Не знаю.
I don't.
из-за пожара.
Because of the fire.
Но У меня после него ничего не осталось.
I had nothing left after it. How about me?
Ты рассказала, что я тебе не зачем.
You said you didn't need me. Nonsense.
Я надеялся, что ты узнаешь.
I was hoping that you would find out and follow me.
Ты же всегда ехала за мной.
You always followed me, remember?
Но в тот раз ты не поехала.
But you wouldn't that time.
Знаешь почему?
You know why?
Вы могла написать мне, я бы тогда вернулся.
You could have written to me, I would have come back.
Я ведь даже
Where
адреса
to?
не знала.
I didn't even know your address.
Вернуться в Минск всё равно.
And you could have returned to Minsk anyway.
Хотел, только потом поздно.
I wanted to, but it was too late. It was impossible already. And why did you come back later? When it was all over.
Я не знал, что случилось.
I didn't know what had happened.
Ехал, ты разве не
I was on my way to see you, didn't you know? I did.
Я только до сих пор не знаю, зачем твоя мать тогда мне.
Except I still don't know why your mother told me that back then.
Это не наши люди.
Said what? These are not our people.
Клара, разве это так важно теперь?
Clara, is it really so important now?
Конечно, важно.
Of course it is important.
Пришла, чтобы помочь.
I came here to help.
Началось, подругу с собой взяла.
When it all started, I took a friend with me.
Очень рисковали. А твоя мать мне
By the way, we took a lot of risks with her, and your mother told me this. Why did she tell me this? What's the difference? Our people, not our people? Isn't it so painful for me because I'm not Jewish? How was it possible for her to say a thing like this? I wanted to help them. I wanted to take your sisters. They were all very young. I almost succeeded. No, you didn't succeed, Clara. It worked with all the others, except by accident. Don't say that.
Тебе просто повезло.
You're just lucky. Not really.
Разве это смешно?
Is this funny? Not funny at all.
Просто я уже совсем не могу плакать.
It's just I can't cry anymore. Or can I?
Нет, что сейчас не получается.
No, something's not working right now.
Ты очень глупая, Клара.
You're very silly, Clara.
Зачем только я назвал ее в твою честь?
Why did I just name her after you? Stop it, Lova.
Я назвал ее в твою честь.
I named my grand-granddaughter after you. Well, don't lie to me. I know what your Larushka said. When I die, call the girl Clara. It's the way you do it, right? To name children after deceased relatives.
Только она русская была.
Yes, only she was Russian.
Ее звали Лариса.
And her name was Larisa. She took the name Clara after the concentration camp.
Поэтому Ларушка.
That explains Larushka? Larisa? Yes.
Но зачем же менять имя?
But why change the name? Does Larisa sound worse than Clara?
В память о той женщине, благодаря
In
которой
memory of that
я
woman,
в тот же день.
thanks to whom she was not hanged on the first day.
Она всю жизнь считала, что та
All her life, she believed that she had saved her.
Да как же спасла?
But how did you
В
save?
концлагерь попала.
How did you save her? She got into the concentration camp anyway, but she remained alive, and she's been grateful her entire life.
Поэтому она взяла ее имя.
That's why she took her name.
Она взяла твое имя, Клара.
She took your name, Clara.
Теперь подскажи мне, зачем ты это сделала.
Now at least tell me why you did it.
Я сделала.
Did what?
Ты сама знаешь.
You know that yourself.
Как ты смеешь?
How dare you?
Сейчас, как ты
Now,
смеешь?
how dare you?
Почему ты подумал, что это была я?
How could you think it was me? How could you think that?
Я не сделала.
I'd never do that.
Кто это был?
I was trying to find out who it was, but I never found out.
Решила, что это была твоя мать.
I even thought it was your mother, but it wasn't her.
Получается, это был
It turns out it was you.
Это был ты.
It
Зачем
was
ты
you.
свою мастерскую вёл?
Why did you set your workshop to a fire?
Да я и не поджигал.
I never set it on fire.
Ты помнишь ту весну? Она
Do you remember that spring? It never started. It was so cold. I wanted to heat it. I got distracted.
Ты,
I was looking at the picture with you and our baby.
а потом вдруг пожар, и я уже ничего не мог сделать.
And then suddenly there was a fire. There was nothing I could do.
Лёва, ты болван.
Lova, you're a bonehead.
Тогда, что это твоя мать и ты.
Why did you say back then that it was your mother and you? I was mad at you.
Ты всё равно написал картину.
But you still did the picture. But I was still angry.
Можно я тогда спрошу ещё кое о чём?
Can I ask you something else then? Go ahead.
Из твоей мастерской было видно небо?
Could you see the sky from your workshop?
Если лечь на пол.
Only if you lie down on the floor, but it was still gray.
Клара, зачем ты это сделала?
Clara, why did you do this?
Лёва, сколько же можно?
Lova, Enough of that. Did what?
Зачем ты умерла, Клара?
Why'd you die, Clara?
Я не умерла.
I'm not dead.
Меня убили, Лёва.
I was killed, Lova.
Клара, это опять сон.
Clara, is this a dream again?
Лёва.
No, this is not a dream.
Почему я тогда вижу тебя?
How come I see you?
Ты так и ничего и не понял, Лёва.
You never figured out at all.
Так даже лучше. Пусть так и
Anything.
остается.
Well, it's even better. Let it stay this way.
Кто тебя обидел?
Who offended you?
Ну,
Well,
скажи мне.
go ahead, tell me.
Мне это можешь сказать.
You can tell me.
Никто, милый, все хорошо.
No one, honey.
Теперь все хорошо.
No one. It's all good now.
Ты можешь объяснить мне кое-что?
Can you explain something to me?
Если их всех убили,
If they were all killed,
то значит и я умер.
that makes me dead too.
Милый,
No, you got it all wrong, honey.
То есть
Meaning what?
ты не родился.
You weren't born.
еще нет.
Not yet?
Милый, уже.
No, honey.
Уже нет.
Not yet, not anymore.
Никогда не смогу.
Never again?
Уже никогда.
Never again.
Но ты ведь это и раньше знал. сам.
But you knew that before, from day one.
Послушай, ну ты останешься со мной?
Look, but you're gonna stay here
Ты останешься.
with me. No, you still here.
А ты?
What about you?
Ты ведь знаешь, на самом
You know, I
деле, я не
can't really be here.
У меня нет права на это место.
I have no right to this
Не
place.
было и будет
Never had.
никогда.
Never will have it.
Я это только
Ever.
сейчас поняла, Лёва.
I just realized this now,
Ты
Lova.
же Лёва?
After all, you're also Lova.
И правда, как-то
Really,
думать, что это
how stupid it was to think that this place is mine.
Как ты тогда встретишься с ним?
But how will you meet him then, that other Lova?
Все здесь.
After all, they're all here.
Тоже.
So is he.
мы больше не встретимся с ним.
I won't meet
Ведь
him
он теперь с
again.
ней должен быть.
After all, he should be with her now.
Ведь ей нужнее.
After all, she needs him more.
Пусть остается с Ларушкой.
Let him stay with
С другой
Larushka,
Кларой,
with another Clara,
снежной девочкой, со
with the
снежной
gentle girl, with the bright queen.
Останься.
Stay
девочкой.
here.
Милый, мне пора.
I'm very sorry, honey. I have to go. Stay with me a little longer. No, please.
Хорошо, но только если совсем немного.
Okay, just a little longer.
Холодно как-то. Тебе не холодно?
It's kind of chilly. Don't you feel cold?
А весна
The spring.
тоже не придет уже никогда.
Will it never come again?
Глупости придет, конечно.
As well? Nonsense, it will come.
Ну все.
Well, that's it.
Точно пора.
Now it's definitely time.
Куда ты?
Where are you off
На
to?
рассвете меня не станет.
I'll be gone at dawn today.
Тебя
Will they
расстреляют или повесят?
shoot you or will they hang you?
Я не знаю, милый.
I don't know, honey.
Не грусти, пожалуйста.
Just don't be sad, please.
Ничего нет.
After all, none of this happened. None of it ever will.
Уже никогда.
Never again.
Дорогие друзья, позвольте мне
Dear friends, please allow me, on your behalf,
сказать огромное спасибо за
to say thank you very much to our actors there for this wonderful play that we've seen. I wish them big success with this play and others.
Я хотел бы пригласить
At this point, I would like to invite the main rabbi of the progressive Jewish community in Belarus, Grigory Abramovich, to complete our meeting with the traditional procedure, as our good tradition goes. Please, the floor is yours. Kaddish. There are things we need to pass on to the next generations. There are things we need to do to thank our ancestors. Well, the actors have done a terrific job. I'm having a very hard time speaking right now. Please, all the present, I need you to rise for the commemorative prayer. There's a candle of memory that we will light up, candle of remembrance that we will light up right now. Yakov, could you please light up this candle for me? And you, can you please do that? Frida, you're also welcome. Frida. If there are any survivors of the ghetto, I would like to invite you. I would also encourage you to please take to the stage the young survivors of ghetto, people who were young at the time of ghetto. This is a commemoration prayer to the 6,000 of our brothers and sisters who were burned alive, shot. The fate of the people of Israel was the martyr's death, but even before the death at the hand of merciless murderers who did not feel sorry for the women or old men or children, the Jewish people did not leave the faith. They did not leave the faith in the goodness. May they be in peace with the Almighty Lord. May they rest in peace. We will say amen wherever they are. The commemorative Kaddish for all those who perished in the Minsk ghetto. For each day of the hell back then. This is a commemorative Kaddish for the Holocaust victims, the victims of the Second World War. Today's Kaddish is also for those who died because of the wounds inflicted by the war, and for those who never survived to see this day. May their memory be blessed.
וחייכונו יומכונו חיי כל בית ישראל בגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן. יהיה שמי רבה מברך לעולם ולעולמי עלמיה. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתחלל שמי לקודשה בריחו. לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה תאמירם בעלמה ואמרו יהיה שלמה רבה מן שמיה וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, כל בני אדם ואמרו. Спасибо большое и прошу.
Amen. Thank you. You may now be seated. Dear ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, we have approached the finish of our event. the organizers wish to thank you for the participation in our commemorative event. I believe that this event, on the one hand, has really served to remember to cherish the memory of those dying, of those dead in the Minsk ghetto. It's also a mobilization for the partners, opening new names, recording new biographies, preserving the memory of those who died. This must be an appeal to us. This must serve an appeal to us to do everything possible to avoid this tragedy of the Jewish people, and at the same time, the tragedy in a broader context, the tragedy of the Belarusian people at the time of the Great Patriotic War. On behalf of the organizers, I want to wish you success. Don't fall sick. We have 3 central events coming up. The first one is the 80th anniversary of the Great Patriotic War. The second one was today, the 80th anniversary of Minsk ghetto establishment. And the third event is coming in November, 80 years since the first deportations from the Western Europe to Minsk ghetto. So I believe that we will get together to commemorate the German, Austrian, Czech Jews who died both in Minsk ghetto and in the Malotrestinets death camp. This is a sad note. This is once again to reiterate that we do not remember, we do not forget, we always remember, we will remember everything that was, and we will do everything possible to stop it from happening. Now I would like to invite all of you to the Westphalia restaurant for the informal conversation during our mini fushat. Thank you very much. All the best to you, good health until we see each other again. Thank you. Stay safe.